Hey everyone, and welcome back. I've had a couple of requests recently on Instagram and on YouTube to show some of the art pieces that I work on. And I do local shows, and I sometimes will travel I'll go about 100 miles in the bus. I don't like to go much further than that. And I build everything in this shop and the garage. You've watched the channel, most likely you've seen the garage. This is my small little art space that I work in. And it has pretty much everything I need, tightly packed in here. But the project I'm going to show you today is one that I have a lot of fun making. Let me spin you around here. These are copper vases, and the unique thing about them is that there is an opening in the bottom. So they will hold water, but when they're hanging on a wall, it just looks like it's a piece of copper pipe. It'd be real easy to just solder a cap on there, but where is the fun in that? So when they're hanging on a wall, they have kind of a unique look to them. So I just put a little picture hanger on the back side of it, and then it hangs on a wall. I've made several of them where they will sit actually on a desk, and those are kind of fun too. And for a couple of these, I've actually made a stand for them to sit in. And then I also do these, which are just a piece of copper tubing, copper pipe, left kind of in the circle that it's rolled in when you get it, and cut off, and then mounted to a piece of copper, or soldered to a piece of copper, and then I hammer that with the brass nails onto a piece of wood. So that's kind of one of the things we're going to be working on today, and then I'm going to show you a couple of the other pieces that I've made. Let me go grab those real quick. I've made a couple of little clocks here. Anytime I go to an auction or a garage sale and I see vintage tins, I grab them because if they're the right size, they make a great clock. And on this one, I just used a little metal nibbler and nibbled out the bottom, routed out the bottom, put the clock mechanism inside, painted the hands so they'd be a contrasting color. This guy is a pair of pliers. If you can see him very well or not. A pair of pliers, and then I have welded a couple of little feet so that he'll stand up a little better. And I just tack welded the tin. Yeah, be careful, you'll blow that out. Tack welded the tin to the little arms, and he is pretty dang cute. And the clock mechanism, this just comes off like it would if it was an ointment jar, and the clock mechanism is inside. And then I've built all sorts of different lamps. I thought I would show this one. I had this one recently on my Instagram. It's Junk in This Truck, and he was featured on that. And it's just bicycle chain welded, a link at a time. I don't know how well that's coming through, with a vintage cord on it, and then inner tube as the base, and he has a bicycle headlight as his light. So those are some of the pieces that I have done recently. I'm going to show you how I do those copper vases that hang on the wall, and show you a couple of other things. So we'll be doing something a little bit different today. Not bussin', but we're still building, and hopefully you'll find that entertaining as well. I'll teach you how to do those little copper vases, and these are real simple. Just follow the same plan that we're going to do with the short ones, only cut the piece different. The little clocks, I don't have any video of those, but those are pretty self-explanatory. And I'm going to throw another oddball one in for you at the end. So if you haven't watched the other projects, I'll put this in with the playlist for everything else, and you can check everything else out if you'd like. Let me go grab one more thing and I'll show you, and then we'll get to it. So this is one of the things I built. It's an Empire State motor oil can, and then I just drilled holes into it. You can do this with any kind of gas can you want, and it gives a pretty unique lighting. I'll flip the lights on, you can see what that looks like in the regular light. It's not coming in real clear, but you can kind of see what that can looked like before I started with it. And I just used the metal nibbler again on the bottom, and then I just put a little flip switch up on top. So just metal nibble on the bottom, put a piece of wood inside there. Let me turn the light off and see if it shows up a little better. If that's showing up for you or not, but basically just router out the bottom of it, and then put a switch on, wire your lights inside, and you're good to go. You can use whatever, like I said, whatever gas can or oil can you want to use. And as for this little guy, this little tricycle, there is a build video on him I'll try to go around here. Some of you will recognize some of these parts that are on here. Behind that key there is a razor. That's what the handlebars are. There's a Ford wrench making up the main body. This is a steam pop-off valve. And some sewing machine parts. Points. There's a set of points right there. And this is a sewing machine, the main drive wheel on the sewing machine. So he was kind of fun to build. I had a good time building him. And there is, like I said, there is a build video on him if you want to go check it out. So let's head out to the shop. I make these little copper vases where I put a piece of copper pipe onto a piece of just flat copper, and it'll be soldered like that. And then that piece of copper pipe gets nailed to a board. And I'm in the process of, when these are hanging on the wall, they just look like they're an open-end pipe. So I'm in the process of making the magic happen, so to speak. Let me turn on this light here. I'll show you. So when I do these, they will hold water. And inside there, you can see I've soldered a little copper medallion, just a little circle. And all of these other ones, I have it tacked in there. So I've just gone through and tacked it in. You can see it's not all the way across. And then you make a little coil with a piece of wire, and I nick it at a spot. So this one's got a nick right there. So if it does accidentally get soldered, I can just take a drill on the end of it and twist it off, and that piece will just be stuck in there. But what happens is when it gets in there, it wants to fall out. So I just feed that little curly Q up into there until I hit the bottom of that where I've soldered that in there. And I used this to put it in there too. So I've got that all the way up, so it's not going to want to fall now. And I'm just going to cut up little nuggets of solder and drop them in. And hopefully you can kind of see in there. I have found that if you kind of lay the little nuggets along the edge and then heat from the outside of the pipe, it tends to work a little bit better. Make sure you flux and sand the inside. I didn't mention that. I do quite a bit of stuff like this, so I have one of these little guys, little wire brush that just fits perfectly in there. And it's stiff, so when you put it in and give pressure on the side of the pipe, it cuts it up really well. And then don't forget to flux the area you're getting ready to solder to. So let me heat the outside of the pipe and melt those two little solder pellets in there, and we'll get that side. And then you basically just have to keep turning the pipe till you get all of the sides done just like that. So if you use gravity to your advantage, you're just going to tack that little medallion in there and then turn the pipe just a little bit, heating from the outside, and then you end up having just a little bit left. But use gravity to your advantage. So I just kind of drop my little nuggets in next to my little medallion and then just let gravity kind of feed it down just a little bit, and it fills that gap just fine. So that's the best process I have come up with in order to make these little suckers. So the test in the end is, will it hold water? So I usually just pour water in the end of it and make sure we don't have anything dripping out the other end. So that one's good to go. These are kind of a pain to make. I'll be honest, they're really a pain to make. But they sell really well, and they look really pretty on the wall. And there's just something about copper that's different than any other metal. Get the glare. Finish this pile here, and then I'll show you what we do. And go get some old barn lumber, and we'll mount those to a piece of wood. So this is the setup when I'm ready to put it on the plate. I just put a clip on the back to hold it in place. And then you just have to be kind of careful and not bump it. I've sanded the plate and the pipe, put my flux in there, and I'm just going to work solder down in there. So I've gone ahead and pre-punched and drilled my holes. It's harder to do that when the copper piece is on there, so it's much easier to do it when it's just a flat piece. So I do that first. It's hard enough to hammer them. Yeah, it looks like we need a little bit more in there. This other side looks really good. Need a flashlight in there and I'll show you what I'm saying. So you can kind of see how that side just kind of wicked it up against the pipe, and this other side, there's just a big gap there. It did solder, but I like the look of that as opposed to the other side. So let me just slip another little piece down inside there, and I think we'll be able to get it pretty easily. It takes more than you would think, so I'm cutting 3 pieces that are probably 1.5 inches. And then if you put a little bend in it, they don't want to roll out of the way. So I just put a slight bend and then take it and kind of push it up in where it needs to go. I'm going to shove that one actually up a little bit so it'll kind of hook right around there. Perfect. Noise alert. There we go. Got it. That looks better. That pop, I think, was the flux boiling and popping back. I'm using a different kind of solder than I usually use too. Don't touch that, it's hot. So there you can see what I'm talking about, how that kind of just makes that. Zoom in a little bit. And of course, well, these will all get cleaned up. They're not going to stay like they are right now. So 3 more to go. So that's what we're going for, just kind of a nice, smooth seal between the pipe and that piece of copper. I'm going to put just a little bit of stain on these. This is actually lumber from Crane Naval Base here in Indiana. And I'm going to try putting some stain on the red side. I really like the red side, but it looks better with the copper on the darker side. Like I said, the boards I was using before were just kind of some thin headboard material. And I think these will work if I put some stain on it. I have some red mahogany. Let's try that and see what they look like. I'm gonna have to start running the heater in here pretty soon. It's getting a little chilly. Working outside on those rotisserie pieces tonight. It was really starting to show. Alright, I get all those stained. The ones I had cut anywhere, the ones that Aaron had cut for me. And so those will go on there like that. I think that'll look okay. So we'll let those dry out, and I'm going to jump over onto license plate trays and cut some of those out. So the license plates were taken and folded into trays. I try to find ones where the Indiana or whatever state I'm getting is right side up. But this one I picked because it says the Hoosier State, and the Hoosier State is right side up. So those are done. Need to be just kind of cleaned up a little bit. And then I made these little trees out of springs from like a couch or a bed. Actually, I'm not sure what these came from. My mom had just a small little section of it she gave me. I think it might have been a couch. And I just put bells on this one, so, and then I put a stamped wish little tag on that one. And this one and that one are little file holders. So there's a cullet down inside there, and you just tighten this down onto the file. So those are file holders, and then that one and that one are screwdrivers that I just cut a notch in. So I cut them flat. Oops, knock them all over here. I cut them just flat on the bottom, so they'll sit flat, and then cut a notch up at the top to run my wire in to weld it to. And I'm actually going to mount these on, they'll be mounted on a little square piece of wood, just so they'll sit nice. So that's that, and then the boards I stained, that's the next day. So these are all stained and ready to go. I'll go ahead and put my hanging tag or my hanging piece on the back so that those can be cleaned up and nailed to the board. So the copper vases will just get these sawtooth hangers put on the back of the board, and I usually do that before I put the copper on, just a little easier to do that. And then I kind of threw these two hooks. If you watched the video on one of the auctions I went to, Katie Lynn Auction Barn, I'll put a link right here in the video. You can go check it out if you didn't watch it. But I picked up these hooks, and they're like the front of a truck, big tow hooks off of a truck, and they landed kind of laying down beside each other. And the cool thing is they do kind of have an arc to them. They're not straight. So if I mount this where it'll hang straight, it looks like a skull. I don't know that I would have ever seen that, because I had planned to use them as turkey heads on those turkeys I make out of clutches, and use them like that. But I threw them down, and they kind of just landed like that. And I thought, wait just a minute. Put those suckers together, you got yourself a wall hanging just like that. Someone said Dodge truck, I think, or Dodge Ram. I think that's what I'm going to call it, the Dodge Ram. Kind of funny. So here they are after I got them all welded together and got them oiled up. I didn't do anything paint-wise, just oiled them with some boiled linseed oil, and I welded a wrench on the backside, and that's what actually will hang it on the wall. I think they turned out pretty good. It really does look like a ram's head. Thanks for watching, everyone, and next time we'll be working on some more old crusty junk, hopefully on the old 1958 press bumper panel bus named Pickle. I'll see you next time.